Okay, so I was saying how evil equals 48. If you add up the letters by their place in the alphabet, evil, rude, both words, equal 48. And we are 48 days away from Friday, 9th of March, 2018, which is the date of my prophecy against immigration and border protection in Australia. And Peter Dutton, who is the Minister for that government department and now for Home Affairs as well, Australia's little Trump, as they call him. And I was also saying in one of my recent videos how I no longer get excited about Australia Day. I don't celebrate Australia Day like I used to. It used to be my favourite day, but it's just turned into a day that is, I don't know, it's got a real racist quality to it now. And, I mean, you've only got to read the words vile death and rape threats. It's endless these days. It's just a constant. Australia Day comes around, you just think, oh no, here we go. It used to be a really nice day. It used to be a day where you could just celebrate the fact that you're an Aussie, you know, celebrate your country and your values and all the rest. But now it's just, oh my. It's like what politics has done to Australia in general. It's just a non-stop fight between two political parties who it seems are hell-bent on wrecking pretty much everything. Which is why I've decided at the next election I'm not going to vote for either. I'm just going to leave my ballot paper blank to show no confidence in both major parties. And I'll vote in the Senate for someone who stands up for something that resonates with me as a person. Because neither major party has stood up for me after I was ripped off by Immigration and Border Protection to the tune of more than $10,000 in a partner visa application that was rejected in a way that I found disgusting. So we'll see what this says.
This is not something that has just piped up this year. You know, this has been going on for 80 plus years or more than. So I find it surprising. If the Minister is the Minister for Indigenous Affairs, absolutely should be informing himself of issues that impact on Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples on a regular basis.
So do you know if any other Indigenous Australians have raised this issue with Senator Scullion?
I don't know of any I know of anyone that has raised it specifically with him, but I know that the Minister himself does have a line with myself and co-chair Jackie Huggins, because I'm co-chair with Dr. Jackie Huggins as well, is that we do have the Minister's line and we can talk to him. He can ask us questions, but that's how you inform yourself as a Minister. And
so the Minister insists that it's obviously never been raised. Do you think that his statement is plausible?
Well, I think it is, because I think he's been on this other road of trying to address disadvantage. This is a much bigger thing than an individual minister. This matter has been raised, and it's a matter for the Parliament of Australia to address, to listen to the things that are important to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. And I would urge all politicians to have a discussion. And that's what Congress has been calling for, is to have a conversation with First Peoples about this issue. And I think that's plausible.
Yeah, so changing the date is definitely a priority.
Absolutely. I think it contributes to all of what we're experiencing today.
So government frontbencher Ken Wyatt says opinion is very much divided in the Indigenous community over the date of Australia Day. Is that your experience?
Well, yes, it can be, but I think it is growing that the changing of the date because of the history, and I've said this before this week, is that the act is history. We can't undo that. But by not changing the date is not inviting people to have a conversation to negotiate something that we can all celebrate on. So the division already exists.
So given the division over this issue and what we've heard from the leaders of the two main parties, do you agree that the date of Australia Day is unlikely to change unless we become a republic?
Well, that's a possibility as well. I think these things could come into the mix of the conversation. But the actual date of the event, The event is the critical thing, but the day of celebration. So the 29th, what happened on the 29th, 1788? We're not asking for that to be changed, but we're asking for the change of Australia Day celebrations where we are an inclusive nation, because way back then,
I think he meant to say the 26th.
even in 1901, we weren't inclusive. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples were not included.
I assume you meant to say the 26th, because that's Australia Day, not the 29th.
In the conversation about the federation of this nation.
Yeah, there's a bigger issue too, because they haven't even recognised Aboriginals in the Australian Constitution, and I think that's a bigger problem. It sort of shows there is racism still built into the Constitution. So then when you have Australia Day on the date that celebrates white settlement, on top of that, it becomes a real issue. And I can tell you there are a lot of... The people that go out and fly the Australian flag the most on Australia Day are not nice people. I mean, there are nice people that do, who are not racists, but there are too many racists who do go out and fly the flag, Australia flag, on Australia Day. And that is making Australia's flag associated with racism, which is pretty sad. Very sad, actually. And I've heard of people having tattoos removed because they don't want to be having people, you know, tattoos of the Southern Cross. The Southern Cross in particular has become... It's a shame that groups, these racist thug groups, have actually stained that image of the Southern Cross. An image that goes back before there were even human beings in Australia, has been stained by these racist twerps. And I think that's really sad. To the point where there's a lot of people have got that tattoo, and now they're like, oh, I don't want to be associated with Reclaim Australia or True Blue or any of these groups who hold these disgusting racist attitudes, which are attitudes that are definitely encouraged by people like Peter Dutton, who's the head of Home Affairs in Australia and the head of Immigration and Border Protection. And it was that organisation, that government department, who cut me off for my partner, who is from India. He's from southern India, dark-skinned and black-haired, and his birthday's on Friday, the 9th of March, 2018. And I think there may be some sort of dark storm going to happen on this date. And it is 666 days after this date, Thursday the 12th of May, 2016. And Thursday's Thor's Day, if you know your Greek mythology. Thor was the Greek god of lightning and thunder. Everyone knows that. You don't have to know much Greek mythology to know that. 2016 is 666 times 3 plus 6 times 3. 12. Well, that's the age of the twins in this story by R.L. Stine. And apart from Thursday, Saturday seems to be pretty important. I found this book actually on a Saturday, on Halloween, Saturday 31st of October 2015. And that was just 2 hours after I wrote Red Rain equals 69. I was sitting in the library and I noticed sitting next to me on the shelf, Red Rain by R.L. Stine. Caught my eye, got my attention, got me thinking. I had just been the victim of bullying, both by the Australian federal government. Well, my partner at the time was the primary victim. I was the secondary victim. Then I was a victim of the New South Wales state government and the disgusting mental health care, so-called mental health care system in New South Wales, which is a joke. And so it was just after that happened that I came across this book, and I thought, in such a strangely coincidental way, I thought there's something in this. This means something. This is a meaningful coincidence. This is connected to what I was talking to the psychiatrists about in that horrible psych unit, who, when I talked about meaningful coincidences and synchronicity, they used that to diagnose me with schizophrenia and force me against my will, to take antipsychotic medication, which is a disgusting thing to do, and you wonder why there's people that are against the government and against modern medicine. Well, it's because you've got unscrupulous doctors who are employed by state governments in countries like Australia, which supposedly are a bastion of freedom and democracy. And you have those people placed in positions of authority who bully and intimidate people. And I was told, you will take these tablets or we will hold you down and forcibly inject you. So I had no choice, and it did mess me up pretty badly. So that was in October 2015, and it was right at the end of that month, after they finally let me out, that I found this book. And I know it meant something. So 12. It's a big deal. Today is 48 days away from Friday, 9th of March 2018. I found this book on, like I said, Saturday, 31st of October 2015, Halloween. Today is Saturday. Today is the 20th. Today is the 20th of January 2018. And it's 1 year today since Donald Trump was inaugurated. The guy who runs the government department that screwed me over, Peter Dutton, is sometimes referred to as Australia's little Trump, and that's for a good reason. The word evil equals 48. For my money, racism is like bullying. It's like intimidation by power-hungry people. Daniel in this story is described as the evil twin because he lusts power over others. He craves it. He wants to rule the school. And he uses Samuel, his identical twin brother's psychic abilities, including pyrokinesis, and Samuel's ability to hypnotize people. Daniel uses all this to his advantage. Samuel does not have the inclination to be cruel or to have power over people, but his brother does. And that's why Daniel's described as the evil twin in that story. The 12th, plus 666 days, lands you on the 9th, Friday, 9th of March, 2018. My ex-partner's birthday. He's still my best friend. So no, you did not destroy our friendship. Evil equals 48. Rude. Sometimes you should be rude to people that have been bullies and sadists. You should definitely be rude to them. This message I saw on Saturday the 12th of May 2012, 4 years before this date, Thor's Day. Like I said, today is 4 years since Donald Trump's inauguration, and we are 48 days. The value of the word evil, if you add up the letters by their place in the alphabet, evil is 48. And that's how many days we are. We are away from Friday, 9th of March 2018. 48 days after the anniversary of Donald Trump's inauguration. Interesting.
We're looking back at what has been an eventful 365 days.
I'll start the story at the beginning. Don't want to miss the start of the story. Pretty important, I think. Okay, so let's go.
Well, today marks 1 year since the inauguration of Donald Trump. We're looking back at what has been an eventful 365 days in office. But do the millions of Americans who backed his White House bid still support him and his contentious actions? CNN's Martin Savage sat down with several Trump voters to find out.
Anywhere you look in Youngstown are reminders of what's been lost. Factories, jobs. The city's population is down by almost 2/3 from the 1950s. The economy wasn't just disappearing here, so was a way of life.
And I realized that the core foundation of our country is slipping away.
I mean, it got to a point where I did not like the direction that my country was going.
The answer for many was Donald Trump. In 2016, according to the Mahoning County Board of Elections, approximately 7,000 registered Democrats switched parties to become Republicans.
He said he's going to make America first and he's going to bring jobs back. Donald Trump says you're in lousy trade deals. We fix that, the jobs can come back.
Something that he said that really sticks with me is that he wants to give the power back to the American people, and that's something that I can certainly get behind.
I'm with a pastor, a stay-at-home mom, a student, a machine shop worker, and a union member. Democrats who were raised in Democrat families who crossed over to vote Trump.
We're 1 year in. How's he doing?
Fantastic.
Phenomenal.
Better than I ever would have dreamt. I mean that sincerely.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Derek?
Yes, I agree.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, he's doing wonderful. He's staying on task.
We start with a hot-button topic of the moment.
How big an issue to all of you is immigration?
Huge.
Really?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In Youngstown, Ohio?
Absolutely.
And as far as I'm concerned, they're stealing jobs of rightful citizens.
It's also about something else Trump voters say is important: rules and respect.
I feel like when people come here illegally, that's just very disrespectful. You don't respect our laws, and you shouldn't be able to come here freewheeling like that.
A year later, they all still want the wall. As for the president's inflammatory tweets and speech, Gino says he used to cringe, not anymore.
So you don't cringe anymore because you've grown numb to it, or?
No, not numb at all. But I know what he's done. And I'm starting to get an inkling why he uses Twitter in the way he does. Because if all he had to rely on is what people say about him, oh my God, I might not like the guy. But I love the guy. I love the job he's doing.
Justice met Trump at a rally and says he's not a racist.
He was just the nicest person, and honestly, if he was a racist, as everyone paints him out to be, he could have just walked right past me and not even said a word.
What about the lies?
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think he is a liar?
Do I think he's lied? No. Do I think he's fallen short in some of his goals? We all do.
Economically, they say things aren't getting better. The stock market and their home values are up.
Industries are booming. Everywhere I've seen.
I look around here, I don't see a boom.
Well, in this area, no, but I feel like there's small businesses that are starting to pick up.
Derek says Trump's tax reform will fuel the recovery.
If you expand your business in the inner city, so then my community will benefit from this tax cut.
Do you think the media gives the president a fair shake?
I don't think so at all.
No.
1 year later, these voters couldn't be happier. They see achievement. Most of all, they see a president like them.
And he's like tenacious sometimes and says stuff off the cuff like we do, like real Americans do. You know, we're not perfect. I'm tired of suave. I'm tired of polished. I'm tired of the teleprompter. You know, I am. I want my country back.
Let's have a look at the weather. We're joined by Samantha Chiari from Sky News Weather. Good morning to you once again, Sam. Gee, it's been a very hot couple of days in the southeast. We've had heat wave conditions. We still do in some parts, don't we?
Yeah, the eastern inland, Janie, all eyes will be on you today and tomorrow. A stalling trough is continuing to drive in hot and dry northerly winds, which means a heat wave is continuing for places like Albury, Canberra, Broken Hill, Burke, Tamworth, and even inner western suburbs of Sydney. Let's fly around the nation now and take a look at our current temperatures. Good morning to you in Adelaide, 25 degrees. You just sweat through your hottest day in 3 years on Friday, maxing out at 43.7. Melbourne got to 40 degrees, which made it their third consecutive day above 40 degrees for the month of January, and we did see a top of 30.9 degrees right now in Cobar. Sydney is sitting on 23 degrees. Inner western suburbs are set to sweat. Now, by the coastline, with the influence of a sea breeze, it is much cooler today versus inland regions of the nation through the east. So Penrith and Sydney, a great example. Sydney, a forecast top of 29 degrees versus Penrith, which is 41. You can see that dark maroon shading filtering on down the trough line can indicate where we are seeing the cooler conditions versus the extreme heat. So the southern coastline of Vic, that peach shading only indicates temperatures just above 25 degrees. That dark maroon shading, temperatures above 40. As a result, we do have elevated fire danger in place today for parts of New South Wales and Victoria. Severe fire danger is forecast for the Greater Hunter, the northern slopes, the northwestern, the central ranges, and also the southern ranges. We also have very high fire danger forecast for the Greater Sydney region. Severe fire danger is also forecast for the Mallee region in Victoria. If a bushfire is burning in either of these areas, it'll be difficult to control and hard to predict. So all eyes remain on the eastern inland. Extreme heat continuing, and no real cool relief is in sight.
Yeah, there's a large area really feeling that heat, and as you mentioned earlier on Saturday Edition, the chance of thunderstorms, which is not good news as well. But let's head further north. We've got that trough, the monsoon monsoon trough providing a lot of rain and storms. Will we continue to see that for today?
Yeah, well, Darwin, Janie, has collected over 80 millimetres in the last 24 hours. You can see that dash line right across the top end indicating our monsoon trough, which is now active. It is the first proper burst of the monsoon this year, and the thick blanket of cloud cover right across northern Australia indicates the showers and thunderstorm activity we have seen in the last 24 hours. This is what the radar has been looking like. So Darwin has collected well over 80 millimetres in the gauge. A severe weather warning is still current for heavy rainfall for the eastern Carpentaria region. So localised flash flooding in some areas today. These are our totals since 9 a.m. yesterday. Centre Island 93, Mornington Island 36, Normanton 24, Kansas notched up another 32 millimetres in the gauge. They've had some good falls there this week, and Cooktown had their heaviest rain in years to 9 a.m. yesterday, an additional 40 millimetres in the gauge. Showers and thunderstorms will be continuing right across the northern top end, in particular the eastern Carpentaria, where we do have that severe weather warning issued for heavy rainfall, localised flash flooding. Elsewhere around the nation today, it's looking sunny, settled and dry. Much cooler, guys, for the Australian Open. I know Roger will be playing tonight, 26 degrees versus 40 degrees yesterday. And of course, Canberra, you are in day 3 of a heat wave.
Is Roger going to win, Sam?
I think he will, GT. I can't see him losing. I reckon it's going to be a battle of the best. I reckon it'll end up being him and Nadal at the end there. And how good would that be?
Oh, that would be amazing. The good thing about Melbourne, if it rains, particularly this time of year when there's only 2 games a night, they can shut the roof and it's game on. That's how clever they are in Melbourne.
There's no chance of showers today across Melbourne, but again, it is Melbourne. Seesaw weather all the time in a couple of weeks. It'll probably be freezing. And wet again, but take a look
milder. A lot milder than what they've experienced over the last few days. Gee, it was hot there.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
Should we have a look at the... Thank you very much, Sam.
Cool. Well, cool. So, it's good to know there's no such thing as racism. And that, you can say things like, why do we let so many people come to America from shithouse countries? And you're still not a racist. It's good to know. I might have to take a leaf from that book and start discriminating against whoever I feel like, because obviously that's quite okay. The boys in this story, they're blondies. They're like blue-eyed, blonde-haired. They've got the Aryan look, the look that Adolf Hitler really liked to see in his youth, his Jugend. So they could have been pin-up boys for Hitler. Daniel and Samuel, identical twins. Did you know identical twins are like a mirror reflection of each other? If one is right-handed, the other tends to be left-handed. True. I thought I might rewind a little back to the story before this story, because it's interesting. I've met quite a few dark-skinned, black-haired people who are fans of Donald Trump, even in Australia, and I find that a little strange. I found it a little strange right from the word go, because I just think if you're lucky enough to be in a country that has historically been racist, and by racist I mean anti-black, and Australia, it's not that long since Australia had a white Australia policy. I think if you're lucky enough to have come to Australia after that era, you're lucky enough to have been accepted by people who are not racist, by a predominantly white country like Australia, who are not racist and they've rejected racism, and you've come to that country or you've been born in that country and you're a legal Australian, and then you choose to support someone like Donald Trump. I think that's probably about the most ungrateful, the most blatant display of ungratefulness that is possible in a human being. Because you have got what you want, and you don't want other people like you to have the same thing. You don't want other people to come because you know how many other people there are who are needy. So you're saying, don't let them come because they will wreck it. It's incredibly selfish. Incredibly selfish to have that attitude, to side with racists. As someone who has been accepted in what used to be a racist country in America, if you want to argue America wasn't racist or that Australia wasn't racist, good luck with that argument. Because it's not so long since Australia had a white Australia policy. Something interesting about this book, because I've talked about Jacob Wetterling, whose father actually did a lot to stand up for the rights of Negroes in America, back when it wasn't fashionable at all, back when the Ku Klux Klan was, the KKK had a lot of power and were feared. Jerry Wetterling stood up for Negroes and for their rights, for the rights of coloured people in America. And it's pretty unfair that his son, Jake, who is German, his surname, Wetterling, is German and it means weather child. Wetterling. Wetter, weather, ling, little one. Jake, at the time I found this story, was missing. And I've said how today is 48 days away from the 9th of March. Where's my piece of paper? So 48 days from today, it will be the 9th of March, 2018. And it's kind of weird because in this story, of the 12-year-old twins, there's no racism, but there's a lot of power. There's a lot of power over others demonstrated in this story. And I was talking about this little thing, this little tag from the library. Evil boy or rude boy, take your pick, equals 90. Missing equals 90. And that describes what Jake was at the time I found this story. He was a missing person. Missing equals 90. Jacob Irwin Wetterling equals 233. Kelly, which is my surname, equals 65. And birthday equals 87. Now the boy who told me that Wetterling means weather child. 87, birthday, 8 plus 7 is 15. He turned 15 on the 6th of September last year. The 6th of the 9th. Red rain equals 69. He grew up in Germany, but he's not German, nor is he blonde. He just has brown hair. He's actually part Italian, I think, part Spanish. And part English. And part Welsh. And he's the boy who told me that Wetterling means weather child. Jake's hair was sort of brown as well, or blonde, depending. Wetterling, German boy. Wetterling, weather child. Yeah, we're 48 days away from the date of my partner's birthday. My ex-partner, thanks to Immigration and Border Protection. I think attitudes are one thing, but when attitudes start to affect policy, government policy, that's when it truly becomes racism. So let's play this story.
United States Vice President Mike Pence is heading to the Middle East this weekend, hoping to repair significantly strained relations in the region. He'll meet with leaders in Israel, Egypt and Jordan, but he's being snubbed by several other political and religious leaders.
U.S. President Trump has made this region his first foreign destination to strengthen ties with crucial allies. Yet 8 months later, Some difficult conversations await his Vice President Mike Pence when he arrives this weekend. This trip comes as protests erupted in the region over President Trump's controversial decision on Jerusalem, delaying Pence's trip for about a month.
It is time to officially recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel.
And now, in protest of that decision and plans to move the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, Palestinian Authority leader Mahmoud Abbas will not meet with Pence. Pence's trip will focus on combating terrorism and assisting persecuted religious minorities. His travels will start in Egypt, where he will meet with President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. Then, Pence will make his way to Jordan, where he will meet with King Abdullah. But already top Christian and Muslim leaders have refused to meet with him. Not the case with Jewish leaders. Mike Pence will cap off his trip in Israel, where he will meet with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. But tensions in the region are still running high, following an announcement that the U.S. will hold back more than half of the funding it provides for an agency that supports Palestinian refugees.
Cutting off the aid for the refugees is going to look as mean-spirited, vindictive, and parochial and nasty.
The U.S. State Department says the decision to withhold more than $65 million is to seek reforms at the United Nations Relief Agency, insisting the decision was not politically motivated.
Now, I'm not saying that people who support, people of colour or otherwise who support Donald Trump should support someone else. I'm just saying that you should not support a racist. If you do, you have no right to complain about racism. And that is a pretty fair call. Fair angel boys, Daniel and Samuel. They died in a hurricane. Do you know what racism really looks like? Do you want to know what racism really looks like? Do you remember a few weeks ago when Donald Trump was talking about North Korea, about we will have no choice but to totally destroy North Korea if they, threaten America? That speech to the United Nations, the one where he listed all the countries that are, in his eyes, are countries that are problem countries, countries he was putting on notice, which included Iran. You know, during that speech, he never mentioned Myanmar or the plight of the Rohingya Muslims in Myanmar, who were at that very time being slaughtered by the military in Myanmar, which is a Buddhist majority country. The Rohingya Muslims there are a religious minority. He never mentioned them. At least 6,000 people slaughtered, including children, including little boys who were ripped from their mother's arms and thrown into fires. And that had been reported on CNN. Fake news, according to Donald Trump. Fake news, really? I don't think so. I think you'll find that's actually very true news. There were children ripped from their mother's arms and thrown into fires to burn alive in Myanmar. And Donald Trump, during his speech to the UN, did not mention this at all. Do you know what the red rain is in this story? It's the blood of the victims of a hurricane. It's not about racism. It's about people who are the victims of a hurricane. Daniel and Samuel are identical twin blondies. They could have been poster boys for the German Nazi party. Hitler would have been proud of them. He would have been especially proud of Daniel, because Daniel's that type of boy. He craves, he lusts power over other people. He wants to rule the school. And he does. And he does it through Samuel, because Samuel has the psychic gift. And his gift includes pyrokinesis and hypnotism. He can hypnotize people with the same gift that enables him to start fire with his eyes. pretty cool. As stories go, the red rain, it's the blood. It's the blood of the victims. And Donald Trump never mentioned the victims of Myanmar. The Rohingya Muslims, little boys torn from their mother's arms, thrown into fires to burn to death. He didn't mention it. Australia's government has not condemned the military in Myanmar. They have not changed their diplomatic relationship with Myanmar, with the government or the military. Australia has continued to train with the Myanmar military. It's now 4 months later since that speech, since those news reports first came out. Eyewitness accounts on multiple news channels. I recorded some off CNN, which I've posted in my videos. That is the true meaning of racism. And when you don't take a stand against that, regardless of the colour of your skin, because let's face it, Daniel and Samuel, if they spend a few days at the beach, they get a pretty nice tan. Their skin turns darker, but you know what? It doesn't change them. It doesn't turn Daniel into a nicer person having darker skin. It's what's in his mind. That's what matters. And Daniel craves power over other people. That's what racism is. It's not about the colour of your skin. It's about being in a position where you can have power over others and you choose to do so. It's an imbalance of power. It's the same thing as sexual assault and abuse. All kinds of abuse are about an imbalance of power. And that's really what we're talking about here. An imbalance of power and bullying by people in positions of authority. And that is evil. That is why Daniel is the evil twin in this story. Samuel kills people because Daniel tells him to. Samuel is the more likable twin, despite being the killer, because he's doing what he's told by his brother, his identical twin brother, who is the evil twin. And evil happens to be the number of days between today and Friday 9th of March 2018.